Okay. All right. Adam, Louise, good to see you guys.
Hey, good afternoon.
So, hello everyone. Not a Facebook Live today, but we do have a Power Talk interview here this week with my partner Sarah and I, founders of Sharp Retention. Again, our goal with these videos is to add value to you all, our community of clients and friends. So thank you for being with us. And today we have none other than the queen of Fairway Mortgage herself, Louise Thaxton. If you don't know Louise yet, she's been in the loan business for 22 years. Her personal team did $69 million in loan volume in 2008. 396 closed loans. Her branch did $218 million in loan volume last year alone. Let that sink in. Those are some big numbers. Louise has more awards than I can possibly cover here, but just to name a few, she was rated as one of the top loan officers in the country by the prestigious Thaxton Guide and top military lender by the National Mortgage Professional magazine. Louise is an absolute killer in the best possible way. On a personal note, we've grown to love Louise as a friend over the year. She's a giver in every sense of the word, and even co-founded the American Warrior Initiative, a charity who gives back to our military veterans in need. So, Louise, it's an honor and pleasure to have you on with us today. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Honored that you asked me to join you today.
You bet. You bet. In the top of our call today, we want to dig in on it. It's going to go different directions here, guys, but we want to really start here with purpose, right? So we're going to talk to Louise a little bit about running a purpose-driven business. It can't just be all about the numbers and the money. It really has to be about more than that. If you really want to build something special, right? So, Louise, to kind of start you off, how do you incorporate purpose into your business to have a bigger impact on your team and clients, and what's your story behind that?
Well, I was actually in 2005, and by the way, we have a tropical storm bearing down on Louisiana right now, so it is I don't think it's been upgraded to a tropical depression yet or to a hurricane, but a hurricane in 2005 literally destroyed one of my husband's farming operations and took away one of our regular incomes. And at that time, I wanted out of the mortgage business, totally out of the mortgage business. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. Now, I think I did it well. I did mortgage planning well. I just wanted something more. There was something in me that wanted more. And I ended up in the effort to double, triple, quadruple my business because I needed the income. I ended up in a little military town, Leesville, Louisiana. And that is where the first realtor trusted me, gave me a deal, and I sat across the table from a young man just back from Iraq at that time. And that changed my life. It changed my life because that young man led to another young man, and then to a young woman, and then to a young couple. And then my production went from 74 units in 2005 to 280 units in 2006. So quadrupled my income, but all done in a little military town of 8,000 people plus a military post, army post. So literally, I'm a story person, and I began to listen to their stories. And as I listened to their stories, I realized there was such a military-civilian divide. Now, if you just Google military-civilian divide, you'll see a lot of people that write about it. A lot of civilians go, what is the divide? If you say something to military, they'll nod their head yes, because they do understand. And a lot of that is because in today's climate, less than 0.4 of 1% of the population are currently serving in the military. And if you compare World War II, that's right. So less than half of 1% are serving. If you compare that with World War II, almost 10% of the population was serving in the military.
Wow.
So if you look at a lot of those that are serving, it has become almost a generational occupation. So you join the military because your father served in the military or your grandfather served in the military. And so that furthers the military-civilian divide because the average civilian is not familiar with the challenges. If you grow up in that climate, then you understand it and it becomes a given. I mean, you understand it very well. So as I recognize that military-civilian divide, I'm just one of those, I've got a big mouth, and I just had to tell the world, and got my boots on with the boot campaign. And I know, Sarah, you just ordered your boots, yeah? And really became involved in a nonprofit because I felt like if I were going to serve veterans, then I needed to have some method of giving back, some charity. And so we partnered with the Boot Campaign for a few years, and then we developed our own nonprofit. And I love the Boot Campaign still. I'm still, one of their ambassadors, and I love them. And then I am the director of the American Warrior Initiative, which is a nonprofit of Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. And so that was a long answer to that one question.
No, I like it. So your husband's farm business went down, right? And you were on your way out of the mortgage business.
Right.
Then it seems, and things, all kinds of shit happen, right? You can never necessarily plan it perfectly. And so you got back in the mortgage business and you met this veteran, and all of a sudden you found, hey, I can run a mortgage business and it can actually feel good because it can have purpose.
So I fell in love with serving the military. And so I would hear their stories. I began to read more books. I've always been a voracious reader, but my book choices changed. As different, some of my clients would come in and they would put my book choices on my credenza, and they'd say, well, you know what? They wrote a book about, a combat we were in. And so I began to read books about actual battles that my clients were in. I asked about more than their name, social security number, and date of birth. I wanted to know about deployments. Then I began to learn about veteran suicide. Then I began to learn about the higher rate of divorce, the higher rate of homelessness, the post-traumatic stress, which I don't call it PTSD, I call it PTS, because I don't like disorder being on there. I think that it is not a disorder. I believe that it is natural when you go through something stressful that you're going to have post-traumatic stress. 8% of Americans will suffer through some type of post-traumatic stress in their lifetime. Car accident, they were robbed, someone beat them up, or, they witnessed someone dying. These are traumatic incidences that we have post-traumatic stress from. Anyway, by the time my husband's business was built, then by that time I'd fallen back in love with what I did, and I realized that although I had never served, I had never signed up to serve, that this would be my way as a civilian to serve our country if I could serve those who serve. And that became my act of service, that I would, operate, their mortgage. I would do it with excellence. But then also it had to go beyond that, is there were men and women who could not get a mortgage because of, living on disability income, very little income, but lots of hurt. And so, I rolled out, what can we do to give back? And that became my mantra. None of us can do everything, but all of us can do one thing. What can we do as a country to give back to the women who have risked everything for us?
And what did that shift do for you in your business? Because a lot of us, because you said the term falling in love with your business again, what would be, I guess for lack of a better way of asking, what would be like your 1 or 2 tips? Let's say you are that loan officer and you've been doing this a long time, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, and you do well, you make an income, but you just don't love your business anymore, right? There's just no passion behind it. There's no power behind it. You're just not excited about it anymore, and you're just kind of going through the motions. What would you say to somebody who's in that spot so that they can get excited about their business again, fall in love with it again, and then therefore obviously get bigger results? How does somebody, I know you kind of fell into it, but if you were to actually manifest that, what does somebody need to do to fall in love with their mortgage business again?
Well, I think that takes, number one, most of us do not think deeply enough to even think about our purpose. Average American does not think deeply. We think, no offense, but we think on a shallow level. But we need to start thinking about what we're thinking about and literally take a little time is, what do I really want? What would be my core purpose in life? So let's, for some people, and I'm just going to use Davidson as an example.
Davidson?
Yes. She does first-time home buyers, and it's tied to her why. And that's, I love Simon Sinek's book, will start with why, is when you really go deep into your own soul, and that takes reflection. And for her, she grew up she realized that while they had lived in the projects, they didn't have to. her mother could have gotten a first-time home buyer loan. They could have owned their home, but no one really went the extra mile, and she became passionate about, FHA and first-time home buyers. I have some of the people on my team who love to teach. So they may not love to pull credit, or they may not love to do an analysis, but what they love to do is teach. So if they have a couple sitting across from them, they love to teach them about the process, or teach them about, this is what you do with credit, or this is the process of an appraisal. So they are teachers at heart. I think that if you really get down to it and you think, I just hate this business, then I'm sorry, I'm about to say something ugly, but you just need to get out of it. I mean, get out of it.
Yeah.
And that was the point I was at. I was thinking, I've got to love this, or I've got to get out. But I think that a lot of people could fall in love with it if they could find an area. What's the one thing? And I could do a lot of coaching, and I'll say, what's the one thing you do love? And they will say, teaching. And I said, well, then teach. And they go, well, what would I teach? Well, teach realtors like how to market, teach real estate agents how to build a business plan, how to write a business vision, how do you set goals, start to teach. And it's almost as if some of the time that we have, if we can devote it to what we love, it blends with everything else we're doing. We're helping people. There's a lot of people that would say, well, I should have been a financial planner. Well, guess what? Be a mortgage planner, because what better way to help people with finances is we're looking at their debt, we're looking at their home, we're looking at their assets. And I'm not financial planners, but we're in a good place to be a mortgage planner and then guide them and refer them to a financial. So the key is finding, what do we really love to do? Do we love to market? Do we love to teach? Do we love to sell? And then finding that and saying, how can I take the profession that I'm in and do something with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's always, it's almost like in your personal life, some family members you might have, right? Finding a way to love them for who they are. Maybe you have kind of somebody you don't get along super well with, right? But you kind of find the thing that you love about that person or your business, and then you get power behind that. So you can do the mortgage business a lot of different ways. Maybe you, like you said, maybe you love to write loans. Maybe you love to chase realtors. Maybe you love to market or teach or whatever. I know Sarah and I think you do, Easy, we love the ownership aspect of running a sales business, right? So there's different things that you can do in business, and you have to be agile and fluid enough to not say, I hate the mortgage business, or I hate the real estate business, or I hate my Cutco business. How can I make business something that I love that's in line with the purpose of who I want to be?
I love to write. And so early on, I love to write. So I started writing a blog, and I would do blogs, and then I would just take everyday like flowers or, some incident, and I would write some kind of principle that went around that picture or that incident. And I love doing that, but tying it back into the mortgage industry. So people can take what they're doing and fall back in love with it when you find a purpose and a passion. And another thing, most people don't think about why they're working. They do not think why they're working. And most people, I'm not saying everyone, so a lot of people are independently wealthy and they don't work for building a legacy for their family. But when you start to think about the reason that I get up in the morning is to build a legacy, either one, a legacy for my family, that we have wealth or we have assets that I can pass along to my children and grandchildren, or just help send them to college or send them to private school, whatever that why is, or build a legacy in the business. That's another thing. Do you want to leave this business and leave a legacy in this business? So every day you think about, how is this building my legacy, either with my family or with my business, a financial legacy. And I'm not talking about a dynasty and leaving multi-millions, but I'm just talking about, could you leave a paid off house to your kids, or, money in the bank, or could you send them to college? These are all part of our legacy.
Right. And it's like being, kid in a candy shop, right? Just pick one, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, right? Find a purpose, get excited about it, understand that it might evolve and change, right? Be open to that. But I think the big tip that I would add on to that is, in order to get deep about your purpose, as you said, and to get off the superficial things that a lot of people focus on, you really got to get quiet for a minute. right? Whether it's like airplane moding your phone, turning everything off, and take some time with yourself to sit down and actually say, what are my core values? What is my purpose? What's it all about for me, right? And I think there's not so many people get caught up in just running their business, and then they get super unfulfilled, right? Because it's just becoming, something they do, but they haven't actually sat down and gotten quiet for some time to figure out what is the purpose that I want to push my business so that I have something special. So I would add that on.
A good exercise, and I did this years ago, a good exercise, and this is going to sound a little morbid, but it was through a coaching company, and a good exercise is to write out your and what do you want people to say? And when you write out what you want people to say, you go, well, what is the gap between what I want people to say and where I am now, and then how do I get there? And the same thing, what's your where you want to be and what do you want to do? If you want to be, for me, I wanted to be the VA loan expert. I wanted to be the one that was like the VA queen. I had that vision that people would call me when they couldn't call anybody else. And so I had that vision, but that didn't mean I could just wish it into existence. I had to study VA guidelines, and a lot of it is just through hard work and serving hundreds, thousands of active duty military, mostly active duty military and not veterans, but active duty, but serving thousands of those and learning some things, some hard lessons, but it's work. It's work, but all the time, day by day by day, we are building that legacy that we want to leave. And it doesn't mean that we're living in the future, but we're each day matters.
Yeah.
I heard something, I listened to podcasts, and I listened to one this morning by Hal Elrod and Eric Warning. Yes. And it was, the question was, if you ask yourself, if this were the last year of my life, what would I want to accomplish this year?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's powerful.
What would you want to accomplish this year? And to me, your purpose and your why and what you want to accomplish is usually tied to serving others. It's most of the time, it's not about what we want, it's what I could do to give back or to serve others.
Yep.
The purpose of your why is going to be tied to a bigger purpose of giving back.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to start by, I'm going to change the whole entire world, right? Maybe it's just your family, right? In my belief, it's, if you're not successful with your own family and your own marriage with your kid, you're not successful. If you can't even be successful there, then how are you going to impact the world, right? So it's like start out by like making your wife coffee in the morning, or just doing the little things to be better with the around you, and you can kind of branch out from there.
That's right.
So
I'm curious, Louise, outside of really having this realization and having it as a foundation, because there is no bigger thing than this, but aside from that, what would you credit a lot of your business success to? Is there a trait or a system or just something that you've done other than this that you would like really credit a lot of your success to?
God. I would attribute my success to my faith in God, and I truly believed that anything is possible with God. And when you think about, I was in a little town of 2,900 people. That was the entire parish had 19,000. So if you think about that, and I was closing 5 to 7 units a month, which was in my book that's mediocre, but it was mediocre, but I knew I needed 4 times that, okay? Because I knew that the income that went away, I needed to replace it. And to replace it, it's math, folks. It's math. And we're in a, I talk about units because, it was back, in 2005, average loan size 125, 140, 150 was if you did a $200,000 house, it was big. Yeah. So it was units, and so I knew what I needed to do. Well, the town that I was going to had 8,000 people with a base, with a army post beside it. So to quadruple, most people would have told me that was impossible.
Yeah.
Would you have agreed that would have seemed like, well, Louise is like, she's flipped out, she's the deep end, and that's impossible. But I truly believed, and I have always been a very positive person. Since I was small, I have been a positive person.
Yep.
Listen to a lot of positivity, and I read the Bible, which is very positive for me. So I actually believe that God was on my side, and
Yep.
I don't preach a sermon here, but it just is the truth. You asked me the one thing is I believed God, and I believed that anything was possible. And when everybody else was going, oh my God, I'm going, yes, oh my God. And so I'm thinking that, yes, this is happening, and other people going, how is it happening? And I'm just, believing and praying. Now, that doesn't mean that like there was an angel came down and touched everybody on the head and suddenly I produced loans. There was work to be done. But I believe it was believing that the impossible was possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I truly believe
Right.
that what if anybody would have said you can't, I go, just watch.
Absolutely. Having that conviction and that faith truly. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, I found too for the hard work doesn't show up if you don't believe first. Because if you don't believe it's possible, why are you gonna work hard, right? So everything truly does start from that place of belief first, from faith, right? You have to walk by faith at first, not by sight, right? As the
That's right.
So I mean,
So I actually documented the entire journey in a journal. The whole year, I documented it in a journal.
Wow.
The first time I spoke just on stage presenting these 7 principles, part of it is a possibility thinking. It's mindsets because we get mind blocks. And so I talked about it. In fact, my book, I hope is coming out this year. I'm believing it's coming out this year if I can do the work to get it out. But it is about how we think, and we got to go from, and the name of the book is From Wimp to Warrior in 52 Days. But I've done a lot of study on neuroplasticity and how we change our brains by how we think and the habits of thinking. And one of those habits of thinking is possibility. It is thinking that it is possible.
Yep.
So important. So important. Yeah.
It's pragmatic to be positive. It's not just being positive for the sake of being positive.
Yes.
It's a logical approach to your life and your business. The mortgage business is hard enough as is. It makes no sense to be negative. You're just going to make something that's already difficult 10 times harder. So I always say that it's not about being positive just to be positive. It's about being positive because it's intelligent to be positive, right?
Right. And so that 7 steps that I used from 2005, that whole, actually didn't take me a year. I quadrupled my income I doubled it in 52 days and I quadrupled it in the next 52 days. So
Wow.
I'm a 52-day person. There are 7 52 days. There's 7 52-day segments in the year. So all of my goals are 52-day segments.
I love that.
And so there's 7, but and so that is part of the book. But it was interesting that these 7 mindsets that I wrote about and talked about in 2006, 2007, in the book by a doctor, The Power of Neuroplasticity, he said, here are the 7 elements of rewiring your brain. And they were labeled differently, but they're the 7 steps that I took to actually rewire my brain for success.
And tell us a little bit about 2-part question. Number 1, I think it's amazing you journaled for a full year. That is definitely an area that I struggle with. So first part of the question, what do you see the importance of is for journaling? And second part of that is tell us about your favorite. If you had to pick one of the 7 principles, tell us about that and why it's important to you.
Okay. Well, the power of journaling, I still journal. I journal every day. In fact, I've got my journal here. Hold on just a minute. Well, I'll show it to you in a minute. But I journal every day. I read through the 1-year Bible, and there's usually a scripture that talks to me. But then I also read books. I'm on a 100-book journey this year. So I'm going to read 100 this year. I've read 2 this week. So that's pretty good. Well, you got to. If you're going to read 100 books in a year, you need to read at least 2 a week. But I've already read my 2, and I'm sorry, the 3rd. And so journaling is literally part of rewiring your brain. Now, you cannot do this on the computer. You have to do it with a pen and a journal. Hold on. Because I got to get, this was a gift from someone, and I love it. It's old paper, and it's actually I love journals like this. And so it's a pen, it's paper, and it's actually you are rewiring your brain with different thoughts. Now, to me, the way we think differently is we take input from authors, from things, podcasts, just like I listened to that podcast this morning on Hal Elrod. But you know what? One of the things I wrote down was as soon as I got to work, I wrote down what his guest had said, along with the name of that book that I was going to order. I've already ordered 2 books by that author. Okay, then at night I read on my Kindle. I will highlight things on my Kindle when I read at night, but the next morning I look at the highlighted sections and I write it down. This is how your brain is literally rewired for purpose, rewired to be passionate, rewired to think possible, rewired to have a plan or persevere or possibility or becoming a promise keeper. All of these things we get it. Literally is taking these neural pathways that have been, let's just say, we all know a negative person, don't we? Don't point. But these negative people, they have these neural pathways, and when something happens, their mind goes off and like, everything bad always happens to me. I should have known that was going to happen to me, rather than like, wow, well, that sucked. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do about it. And you don't take it personal. Something happens, but it doesn't. You don't internalize that negative. You just you impact it with positive thinking. So journaling is literally where you can go back. And I believe in journaling AM and PM, but that would probably drive me nuts. So in the AM especially is important because you are getting ready for the day, preparing for the day. And you're writing it down and it's sealing it and it's creating that neural pathway, that new link, that new way to think in your mind. Your second question, what was your second question?
And then your 7 principles, and loved your talk at Sales Mastery last year. If you had to pick, and I know they're probably all dear to you, but if you had to pick one of those 7 as your favorite, what is it? Tell us what it is. What does it mean to you? And just tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's about having a mission. It's being mission-minded. I mean, you've got to get up every morning with a purpose, with a mission, with a cause. I mean, think about how depressing it is if you don't have a mission. And that is where a lot of people are because they've never defined what their mission is. And most people would say, I'm on a mission anytime because I am on a mission. You know why? Because in this journal right here, last night, I wrote down 7 things that I was going to get done by 11 o'clock, and I was on a mission to accomplish them, 7 by 11. By the way, today is July the 11th. So on 7/11, I'm telling you to write down tonight 7 things you need to get done to accomplish by 11 tomorrow. And those 7 things are going to help you accomplish your mission. Now, I'm trying to get that dang book written, and I'm calling it the dang book because I can't. It's like I get involved in everything else, but I need to finish the book. So part of it is finishing up 2 pages of the book, of that book. Also, it was like a list of things I need to do for other people. And I'm checking it off and write this. And I had 3 calls to make and a couple of conference calls. But purpose and mission, those are the 2 that will drive everything else. I can't tell you, literally, I'm going to say hundreds of active duty military or veterans who have told me that after 9/11, they were on a mission to join the military, and wow. they were going to single-handedly defend this nation. They were going to the bad guys, and they were going to take them down like our people were taken down on 9/11. Those 3,000 that were killed, they took it personal. And I have talked to hundreds of veterans that signed up after 9/11 that said, I'm on a mission. I'm going down to sign up. I'm going to join the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, whatever. And I am going to fight this enemy that come against our country. They're on a mission. Good luck getting in front. Good luck in trying to stop those people because you're not going to. And so when you have a mission that you're going to accomplish, there's nothing that's going to stop you. That's what's going to get you up in the morning. That's what's going to keep you up at night. Is I believe that you should write down at the top of the page, what's your mission? You know, my mission is to write the book. I'm just going to tell you, that's my mission this year. I want the book finished, and I want it written. So, write the book, finish the book. I've written it, I'm editing it. Finish the book. That's my mission.
Yeah, and what I've found too about being on a mission is that people are actually, not only are they unstoppable when they're on a mission, but they're actually happier, right? The pursuit of happiness is more about the pursuit than it is the happiness, right? The happiness is in the pursuit, right? We all feel better when we're going after something, not like in wishy-washy land of complacency and kind of unsure about. When you are on a mission, when you have a purpose, you're happier, right? That's the thing too, right? You're not complaining about being busy. You have all these things you're passionate about to get to, and you're happier, right? We get depressed when we kind of sit around and just think, right? An idle mind is the devil's workshop, right? If you ever just sat around and thought and not had a mission, it doesn't feel good, right? So not only are you going to accomplish your goals and be unstoppable and do more loans, make more money, but when you have a mission or a purpose, it feels better. You're just happier, right? That's what I found, at least. So
just never define mission. A lot of people just never will just take
right.
it to define what is my mission. Now, It could be a long-term mission, or it could be a short-term mission. I mean, it could be a 1-year mission. I'm on 52-day missions all 7 times. I've got these goals, and I'm going to get them accomplished. But I mean, the main thing is when you're mission minded, it is going to bring out the passion in you, just like you said, Adam. You're going to get fired up, and you got to be fired up because that's the fuel that's going to take you to do the hard work. And when you get fired up and you start to think with possibility, and that comes from reading books, listening to podcasts, being around people. We are impacted, and our brain is changed by the people we meet, the books we read, the things we listen to. And if you're around negative people all the time, unless it's your wife or your husband or your significant other or your children, you just need to go away from them. And even then, maybe kind of move over. So,
absolutely. I was listening to a podcast today that was talking about the brain. It only weighs 3 pounds, right? So we weigh a lot more than our brains, but it uses up over 20% of our energy. And so in order to fuel that brain, you have to fuel it with good things, good food, exercise, things you're listening to, things you're reading, right? You have to keep it sharp like you would a muscle, right? Otherwise, the brain, like a muscle, will literally start to deteriorate. That's why some people are retired at 50 and they act and look as if they're like 86, right? Whereas somebody else is 86 and they're acting like a 50-year-old, because one has chosen to keep that brain muscle sharp and one has not.
So I do a lot of reading on brain health, and that is one of the things that led me to the keto diet or the keto way of life is for brain health. And it also led me to study a lot of doctors. In one point I said the last 7 books I read have been by doctors. I don't know what that says about me because I didn't like science in high school or college. But Caroline Leaf wrote Switch on Your Brain, and it is amazing. And she's a neuroscientist and talks about how we can literally switch on. You talked about it, Adam. How do we get passion? How do we turn things on? And that is we switch our brain on, and it literally will highlight and activate genes that have lain dormant. So it's very exciting to me. Brain health. Just talking about the brain.
I can't think of something more important to talk about than the brain, right? I mean, it controls everything, right? It truly controls your happiness, quality of life, how you interact with your business, your loved ones. And I think the fact that people don't study what it means to keep a healthy brain is I can't understand why you wouldn't, So, pick up a book. Like you said, you don't have to be a scientist. If you can just understand, hey, I got to get these omega-3 fatty acids. Maybe I got to do some crossword puzzles. Maybe I got to do couple things to keep the brain sharp, and that can make a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So, Sarah, you were going to say something. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, I said exactly what you said is what's more important. And there are so many, we have all this information at our fingertips, and it's good. I'm glad to hear you do that, Louise.
It's awesome. The soon-to-be Dr. Louise. That's what I'm feeling with book coming out, reading books about science. I like it very much. And so we're running short on time, so we're going to kind of wrap it up here with one final question, Weezy. And the question is going to be, what would you say is the number one thing that sets apart somebody who's really killing it, somebody who's a top producer, and somebody who's really just kind of struggling. Like if there was one tip that you were to give to somebody, if they're just struggling in their mortgage business right now, they just can't get to the calls, they're not figuring it out. And maybe it's a redundant answer from what we've already discussed, but what would be that one tip you would give to somebody to really take their business to the next level, volume-wise, passion-wise, and everything?
Well, we have talked about it briefly, and I would just say take a few hours. I mean, I could tell you to take a full day. If you're not doing business, I guess you got a full day to do. Go to the beach, go to the mountains, take a notebook and a pen. A notebook and a pen and get away. And or just go to the library, somewhere where you don't have any distractions, and put your phone on airplane and just start to write, why am I here? Where do I want to be in 5 years, in 10 years? What do I want said at my funeral? Who is the person that I want to be? You know what? The thing about, and this is a sad thing, is that if it doesn't matter what industry you're in, we are not designed for mediocrity. Human beings are not designed for mediocrity, and we're always going to be miserable when we're mediocre, because we were designed for amazing things. It's in our DNA to be amazing. And so when we're living below that amazing level, where we're living lives of just average and mediocre, we know it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is when you get away for a little bit of time and you start to write and just say, where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And it could be, that someone says, well, I always wanted to go to school and be a school teacher. Well, then you may need to leave the mortgage business and go to college and become a school teacher. Or maybe you say, you know what, I want to be a missionary. Or maybe you say, I just want to stay home and take care of my kids. I don't want to work. Sometimes it's not all about like you're going to fall in love with what you're doing. Maybe it's just time to leave what you're doing, but find your true calling in life. You know what? Staying at home with your children is an honorable thing to do. If that's your calling, if that is your calling. So I say, take a notebook, take a pen, get silent and say, where do I want to be? And what would really, really, really bring satisfaction and joy and contentment into my life? And what would it take to get there? And then once you have that, that you've identified where you want to go, then you'll have to figure out how to get there. Like if someone wants to quit work and go to school and be a school teacher and make 25% of what they're making now, they may have to discuss it with their significant others. They may not can pay their bills right now like that. But you start to create a plan of how can I get there? Can I get there from here? And do you know what? I'm telling you, just creating a plan like, well, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I am going to do this in 3 years, and here's the steps to do it. Or it could be that someone says, I want to be a top producer, but I don't know how. Then go get coached. Find a coach that can mentor you and take you through the process of becoming a top producer. There's so many resources out there, but you do have to implement them.
Yep.
Perfectly said, Weezy. Thank you so much for the nuggets of gold here. Thanks for being on with us. We love you very much. And that's it, guys. We're going to post this. We're going to post a link to AWI in the show notes. So make sure you guys hop on that. Get yourself some boots. Let's support our troops, right? Yeah. And that being said, you guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.